Okay, so I bought a book, After Dark, on Dartmoor. So, stories of the devil, ghosts, witches, pixies and other stories. But anyway, the story that I wanted to talk you through now, relevant to Cranmere Pool. Cranmere Benji of Cranmere Pool. The subject of this story, variously known as Benji, Bingy or Bingy, was a real person, Benjamin Geyer. He was a wealthy 17th century character who was elected the mayor of Oakhampton 5 times. Eventually, however, he turned to crime and was convicted of sheep stealing, and a punishment, whether before or after his death varies with different versions, he was condemned to empty Cranmere Pool with a sieve. However, he soon found a sheepskin and used this to line the sieve, thereby quickly completing his task and flooding Oakhampton with the resulting torrent of water. As a result of this added villainy, he was further condemned to spin the sand at the bottom of the pool into ropes. One version of this tale says that he eventually returned to Oakhampton again until the Archdeacon decided to assemble no less than 24 clergymen to attempt an exorcism. Each in turn addressed Benji with a different language with absolutely no effect until the last one did so in Arabic, and this did the trick. For some reason, Benji was transformed into a black colt and was led back once again to Cranmere, where he plunged under the waters and vanished forever. Others say, however, that this part of the legend refers to a wicked farmer of Mary Tavy and that Benji is said to haunt Cranmere Pool, a pool no longer incidentally, but a boggy depression to this day, and can still be heard on dark, stormy nights bewailing his fate. You know. So another Dartmoor legend for you there. Did you like that?
Who, me?
Anyone. Tell us if you like this sort of thing in the comments. Because if not, I just won't bother. A long time ago, I don't know exactly how long ago, but there was a woman walking home between Princetown and 2 bridges. She had nearly reached the bridge that crosses the Blackerbrook when a funny little man leapt out of the hedge in front of her, started dancing. The woman was quite alarmed by this. She didn't know whether to carry on or to turn around, but she decided that she would continue on her route. Fearing, however, that she might be pixie-led or enticed off of the correct path and lose her sense of direction, she adopted a classic charm against the pixies, which was untucking her pockets. Proves that she ain't got no money worth nicking or something.
Elephant impression?
Is that what pixies are? Just muggers? What we now call chavs. She walked onto the bridge, despite the fact that the pixie was still in front of her. Quickly, she reached down, she grabbed the little fella, and she stuck it into her basket. She latched the basket up. She carried on walking, and the pixie was inside, gibbering this mad, crazy language that she couldn't understand. She refused to let this scare her, and she carried on walking home briskly. Eventually, the talking ceased. When she slowly opened the basket to look inside, the pixie had gone off somewhere. She walked home, completely baffled, but proud to have actually found and captured a pixie. Not that she could prove it to anyone, because it's gone.
Awfully.
Yeah, it's just talking crap.
It's not much of a legend.
Well, they're all a bit like that, aren't they? But that's a story.
Is that it?
Yeah, it's called The Woman Who Caught a Pixie near Princetown. You don't have to believe me. I'm not saying it's true, it's a legend.
Well, I know, but you obviously felt it was worth reading that out.
It's just associated to Princetown, and we're at Princetown, you know?
I think in the time that it took you to read that, I could have written something better.
Yeah, but they won't know how long it took me. I'll edit it.
Oh, right, yeah.
Beautiful girl once lived in a farmhouse near Huckleberry Bridge. She had many admirers, but the one she favoured most was a lad called Tom White of Postbridge. He was so much in love with her that he thought nothing of walking 5 miles between them after work every night just to continue their courtship. One night he stayed with her longer than he should have, and on his way home it was after midnight by the time he reached Belvoir Tor. He was startled to hear the sounds of singing and laughter from among the rocks of the Tor. He found himself standing in full view of a large crowd of pixies who were dancing merrily. Before he could hide, they grabbed and pulled him over onto a level patch of grass. Here they formed a circle around him and began dancing with ever-increasing speed. Tom found himself forced to whirl and caper around in time with the pixie music, totally unable to stop. was not until sunrise that the dance ended. The pixies vanished among the boulders and Tom was left stretched and exhausted on the turf. The tale has a sad sequel. Tom was so frightened by his night's adventure that he determined never to risk another encounter with the little folk. And so he did not visit the girl ever again. Sounds like a poor excuse to me. Sounds like he stayed there late one night with this girl, you know, trying to get his end wet. She's like, no, he's probably gone somewhere else on the way home. Tried it with a friend or something. So he's late back to his mum's. His mum's like, where have you been? He's like, oh, pixies. Pixies had me, scared the crap out of me.
Dancing like they was, Mark.
Yeah. Then she goes, are you going back to see that girl? Nah. Scared of the pixies now, Mum. I ain't walking there. Not with pixies about.
Right, basically, we've got two issues tonight, YouTube. One is, you might very well enjoy him, but Trev and his Dartmoor Legends. Two, the noise of rain hitting this tarp is doing my head in. So, what I'm trying to do is fashion some sort of earplug out of tissue paper just to dumb the noise down just a little bit. God, I love peace and quiet. Just going to try and roll it up into a little ball and try and just... I think it's had absolutely no effect at all.
Nath, I've got another Dartmoor legend. Jay's grave. Mary, or Kitty Jay, who was a young girl who worked on a farm in the Manhattan area. And she was seduced by the sun, and therefore she was thrown out of the house and off of the farm. So she then hung herself. Because it was a suicide, they wouldn't bury her in a church. So they buried her here, where the boundaries of three parishes meet. So no one could claim responsibility of her. She was buried here at this crossway so that the devil couldn't claim her soul and she couldn't return to haunt the living. And this was 200 years ago. But one of the biggest mysteries about this is that for those entire 200 years, there has always been a fresh set of flowers put on the grave. No one claims to know who does it. It's a bit of a mystery, isn't it, Nath? This legend starts in the Tavistock Inn, Poundsgate, where some of the locals were enjoying a pint on the morning of Sunday, October 21st, 1638. It's quite a long time ago. They heard the sound of a galloping horse approaching, then suddenly the door burst open and a tall, dark stranger entered. There was something sinister and foreboding about him, but the people of the inn shrugged it off as the stranger ordered a tankard of ale. He paid with gold and raised the tankard to his lips. As the beer went down his throat, there was a loud sizzling noise, and the locals drew back in horror and astonishment. Within a moment the pot was empty, and the devil, for it was surely him, swept out of the bar, and the sound of his horse galloping off towards Widdicombe could be heard in the silent inn. Later, when the landlady opened her till, after drawing a great many pints to calm the nerves of her customers, she discovered that the gold given to her by the stranger had turned to withered autumnal leaves. The scene now shifts to Widdicombe Church, and a young dissolute tinner called Jan Reynolds, who was a heavy drinker and gambler, with a weakness for the cards and the girls, something of a no-good boyo. It appears he sold his soul to the devil to pay off his numerous debts, forgetting, as is often the case, that eventually there has to be a day of reckoning. On this particular Sunday, Jay had spent quite some time in the old inn before the service, and now was slumped at the back of the church, very much worse for drink and playing cards to while away the time during the sermon. But quite soon, with a combination of drink and maybe the sermon, Jan fell asleep. No sooner had he dozed off
Then with incredible suddenness, a terrible storm blew in with ferocious winds, thunder and lightning. The congregation cowered in their pews, and then with a loud explosion, and I am sure fire, brimstone and a smell of sulphur, the devil appeared through a hole in the roof of the tower, seized Jan by the scruff of his neck, and before anyone could move, shot back to the top of the tower, where he had tied his horse to one of the pinnacles, taking the hapless Jan with him. With a final thunderbolt, the devil rode off with Jan in tow, sending the pinnacle to which he had tied his horse crashing down into the churchyard. They were sighted passing over the Warren House Inn, the last hostelry Jan Reynolds was ever to see, and then he vanished forever. Take the story as you will, but there are parish records of a terrible storm on Sunday, October the 21st, 1638, in which 4 people were killed and 62 injured at Widdicombe Church. The storm has a place in the Guinness Book of Records as the worst tornado to have ever taken place in Great Britain. Well, that was the legend of Jan Reynolds. Good old Jan. I hope you enjoyed it. Night, night. So you like my story about Jan Reynolds last night, did I, and the devil?
I heard he telling about Jan and selling his soul.
I said, did he sell his soul to the devil, old Jan Reynolds, and be selling his soul again, ever?
Get on, Jan, be selling your soul again, a bit, boy.
Is that what we've been paid? Been selling his soul? Dartmoor Legends. It was World War II. It's not that old a legend. 2 soldiers posted on Gidley Tor, keeping watch. They could hear from a distance the hooves of a pony galloping up to them. They listened out as these hooves got closer and closer and closer, until eventually they seemed to pass and recede. But there was no pony. It was not the best story, but they basically heard a pony run past, but didn't see one. A ghost pony. Ooh. There's a legend, a Dartmoor legend. Nath, you happy about that?
I don't want to respond because it's always negative. Legend.
There's a story from Norman time that says the Bowerman refers to Bowman, an archer. He was said to have been a mighty hunter. And one day him and his team was chasing their quarry when they stumbled upon a witch's coven and even knocked the witch's cauldron over. Furious, the witches decided to punish Bowerman. So the next time he went hunting, one of them turned themselves into a hare and led him in such an exhausted chase that he eventually fell from his horse into a bog. And before he had sunk further than his waist, however, the witch turned him into stone. And the same fate befell his pack of hounds, whose petrified shapes can still be seen on the crest of nearby Hound Tor. There you go, 2 legends in one there, Nath. Bowerman, up to his waist, and then the other pack's over on Hound Tor there. True story, mate. It's time for another Dartmoor legend. Where we're camping tonight, on Hanger Shell Rock. There's a legend. A man called Jan, because they're always called Jan Bowers. He was a councillor for the nearby town of Ivybridge. One night he told his wife he was just going to pop out for a quick drink at the local tavern. When he didn't arrive back in the morning, she got a bit worried and she called up some friends. Not on the telephone, I think she popped round to see them. And they set up a search party and they searched the nearby moors. Lost me page. First of all, they looked at Western Beacon. That's where we was earlier. Do you remember? We were looking over Ivybridge. Then they went to Uphborough Beacon. But it wasn't until the search party reached Hanger Shell Rock that they heard strange wailing noise. A bit like this. They thought, what on earth is that noise? They looked around the back of the rock, and there, was Jan Bowers, lying, strewn across the floor, whimpering like a baby, dressed in his wife's finest nightgown, a little shorty nightie that he bought her for their wedding anniversary, which she'd never worn, but seemed to fit Jan perfectly. "Jan, mad," they said. "Jan, boy, what be bout ya? What be telling you dressed like a maid? What's going on ya?" And Jan was shocked to see them. His eyes widened, and he said, "It wasn't my fault. I was just minding my own business when all of a sudden a gang of pixies dragged me onto the moors and dressed me in my wife's nightie." And they said, "Jan, mad, how did they get it?" He said, "I don't know pixie magic, but rest assured I am not a cross-dresser. It was the pixies did that. The pixies did that." So just remember, when you're walking anywhere near the moors, make sure pixies don't dress you in your wife's clothes, because it could cause an awkward situation amongst townfolk. Good night.